When the Bab, aged just 25, arose to deliver his revolutionizing message to the world, many of those who accepted and spread his teachings were young, even younger than the Bab himself. Their heroic acts began a pattern in which every generation of youth since that time has seized the opportunity to contribute to the latest stage in the process that is transforming the life of humanity. The examples of youth who have responded to the call for heroism are many.
Mirza Mehdi, the purest branch, accompanied his father Baha'u'llah throughout his banishments. Known for his purity and sincerity, his gentleness and patience, Mirza Mehdi was a pillar of strength to the exiled Baha'i community. One day, as he paced the roof of the prison in Akka, absorbed in prayer, Mirza Mehdi fell through a skylight and was fatally injured. Baha'u'llah, who had the power of life and death in his hands, asked Mehdi whether he wished to live. The purest branch begged Baha'u'llah to accept his life as a ransom for the opening of the gates of the prison to the believers who longed to enter the presence of their Lord. His broken-hearted father accepted his wish. Soon after Mirza Mehdi's tragic death, the gates of the prison city were opened to pilgrims. Shoghi Effendi stated that while the Bab sacrificed his life for the redemption and purification of mankind, it was the death of the purest branch that released all the forces necessary for bringing about the unity of mankind.
Badi, an unruly and disobedient youth, led a wild life and was the despair of his family. When he learned of the sufferings of Baha'u'llah, however, he set out on foot to Baghdad and then Akka to attain the Blessed Beauty's presence. Baha'u'llah states that he summoned Badi to come to his room in the prison and uttered one word to him, a word which caused his whole being to tremble, breathing into Badi the spirit of might and power. So great was the infusion of this might, Baha'u'llah said, that single and alone, Badi could have conquered the world through the power of God, had he been ordered to do so. When Badi learned that Baha'u'llah was looking for someone to deliver a special tablet to the Shah of Persia, he begged to be allowed to carry out this service, knowing full well that he would have to lay down his life. Badi walked to Iran, a solitary figure, over deserts and mountain peaks, for 4 months. Having presented the Shah with Baha'u'llah's message, Badi was cruelly tortured. To his torturer's dismay, Badi laughed under the impact of the red-hot irons and was then brutally murdered. Baha'u'llah gave Badi the title of the Pride of Martyrs and affirmed that he had removed from the person of Badi every trace of fear, adorned him with the ornament of faith and power, fired his soul with the utterance of a word, and sent him out as a ball of fire to proclaim his cause.
Since that time, over the past century, the youth of the British Baha'i community have contributed their own mighty share to the progress of the cause. In the time of Abdul Baha, who graced our shores with his footsteps, Thomas Breakwell, a young Englishman, gave up his well-paid job in a cotton mill in the United States at the master's instruction to live in near poverty in Paris. Breakwell walked long distances across the city to save his money so that he could pay Hogogollah, the first Westerner to do so. Breakwell was distinguished by the love he showed for all of the believers and his extraordinary devotion to the faith before dying of tuberculosis at the age of 29.
Shoghi Effendi's arrival in England as a student at Oxford University made a great impact on the British Baha'i community. Shoghi Effendi united the Friends in London and Manchester and impressed all who met him with his dedication, his love for Abdul Baha, and his determination to study hard so that he could serve the cause. His tireless, incomparable work as guardian of the faith for 36 years led to his untimely passing at the age of 60. How blessed we are to have his mortal remains sanctifying these islands with their presence.
In the 1940s, a great pioneer movement began, implementing Abdu'l-Baha's tablets of the Divine Plan. A staggering 60% of British Baha'is pioneered during this time, many of them young believers. Baha'is from the United Kingdom settled in 138 countries and took the faith to every corner of the British Isles. During the Africa Campaign of 1950 to 1952, during which the Baha'i community distinguished itself in opening the vast African continent to the faith, the British Baha'is pioneered to Tanzania, Kenya and Uganda.
Ursula Newman pioneered to St. Ives in 1945 and became a member of the First Assembly of Dublin in 1948 before moving on to Belfast. She and her husband Mehdi Samandari pioneered to Kenya and later Somalia, for which she was named by Shoghi Effendi as a Knight of Baha'u'llah.
Una Townsend was an active Baha'i youth who became the first pioneer in Ireland in 1946. She pioneered to Malta and was the first Knight of Baha'u'llah in that island in October 1953.
Gung became the first pioneer actually to move from the British community to settle in Africa, hailed by The Guardian as the Mother of Africa. She worked for some years in Tanganyika and then moved to Uganda, where she established a multiracial kindergarten.
Philip Hainsworth pioneered to Nottingham in 1946 and later to Oxford and Blackburn. In June 1951, he pioneered to Kampala, Uganda, where he became secretary of the first local spiritual assembly in 1952 and of the Regional National Assembly in Central and East Africa in 1956. When he passed away in 2001, the Universal House of Justice described his outstanding record of dedicated services in the United Kingdom and in Africa, and his indefatigable efforts to proclaim and teach the cause as unforgettable.
Late 1960s and early 1970s, the faith grew tremendously in the United Kingdom through the efforts of its youth. Large numbers of young people became Baha'is in such towns as Henley, Peterborough and Oakham. Baha'i music groups toured the length and breadth of the country, attracting more young people to the cause and its teachings of unity and peace.
The Iranian Revolution in 1979 led to an upsurge in persecution against the Baha'is in Iran. Stories of modern-day heroism began to emerge from that country. Mona Mahmoud-Nejad was hanged at the age of 17. Her crime? Teaching children's classes. Despite being tortured and interrogated and threatened with execution, Mona refused to deny her faith. Sentenced to death, executed alongside 9 other Baha'i women, she asked to be hanged last so she could pray for the strength of the others. When her turn came, she kissed the noose and put it around her own neck.
The heroism of the youth in Iran inspired the next generation of British youth to arise to serve in the 1980s and 1990s. With the collapse of the communist Eastern Bloc regimes, many British Baha'i youth once again distinguished themselves in service. They arose to travel teach and pioneer to such countries as Romania, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria and Poland. One youth, Sean Hinton, was able to open Mongolia to the faith, being named a Knight of Baha'u'llah by the Universal House of Justice.
In 1996, the Universal House of Justice set the Baha'i world on a new course. Now that virtually every country had been touched by the light of Baha'u'llah, it was time that the teachings penetrated deeply into the life of society. The key to building a new society is the Word of God. Devotional meetings, children's classes, and spiritual empowerment of junior youth, and study circles open to all, ensure that the Word of God can now transform the lives of people in every place, in every country, now divided into clusters.
Once again, it is the young followers of the Blessed Beauty who have been at the forefront of a succession of 5-year plans, 114 youth conferences in 2013, mobilised the present generation of youth to give their time and energy to furthering this process. The exertion and sacrifice of youth have done much to establish the faith everywhere, and to hasten the appearance of a global community of purpose.
For the past 20 years, Baha'i youth and their friends around the world have been at the forefront of community building activities. They have taken an increasing level of responsibility upon their shoulders. They have gained the most experience at aiding junior youth, and children too, with their moral and spiritual development, fostering in them capacity for collective service and true friendship. They have assisted those younger than themselves to refine their characters and prepare to assume responsibility for the well-being of their communities.
The process of community building is gaining momentum in clusters, neighbourhoods, and villages throughout the United Kingdom. The need to share the revelation of Baha'u'llah with receptive hearts and explore the implications of his message for today's world is keenly felt. Clusters must all now move to the next stage of their development. Youth must spearhead the multiplication and strengthening of these activities through pioneering, long and short term, through becoming mobile tutors and travelling teachers, or through serving more ardently in their own localities.
Though the tasks that lie before us are not the same required of a Badi, a Thomas Breakwell, or the heroic pioneers of previous plans and epochs of the faith, the responsibilities with which we have been entrusted are no less vital. The Universal House of Justice has told us,
Before you, beloved friends, lies stretched out the blank scroll of the future, on which you and your spiritual descendants will inscribe fresh and lasting deeds of renunciation and heroism for the betterment of the world.
At this critical time, what will be your heroic contribution?